The end is in sight. I'm almost there. Wait. Alright, who's done this? Who's responsible for this? Because I want to give him a big old hand job. The Emperor's New Groove is so retroactively refreshing. It was popular when it was released, but it's one of those 2000s productions that really stands out today as we all crawl out of the ditch of tropey fanfiction that the last decade swiftly became. It's a buddy comedy slash road trip slash revenge movie that's all about two things: fun characters and hijinks. That's it. One character wants to not be a llama, one wants him dead, and hilarity ensues. The whole film is packed with some of the most hilarious writing in any film fucking ever, and it's just a fun romp from start to finish. I can't imagine anyone not liking this movie unless you're either a joyless asshole who gets mad when things are funny or a bread tuber who can't get past Emperor Kuzco without busting a blood vessel. But when it comes to analysis, I'm a filthy casual, so if you give me enough silly jokes and soft moments, I'll overlook anything. Hell, I'll smooch a Sith if there's enough cheesy adorableness attached to it. Speaking of smooching a Sith, that's all the Emperor's New Groove is missing to be perfect: gay princesses. Well, you got the princess part, didn't he? Atlantis is literally just a straight-line Tetris block of adventure. Let's go find the lost city of Atlantis. We'll be famous. Oh, hey, there's people still living here. Guess we're gonna raid like old-fashioned colonialism. Visually, the film is impressive, and the idea of a civilization of immortal people losing their culture over the generations and needing help in jolting their way of life back to life is interesting in a contextless vacuum, but it comes down to the problem of who is doing the enlightening. You know what? Let's be honest. You don't care. I don't care. This film gets by with most people on the visuals, and the themes of the film and how they work is all just so much background noise, and honestly, Atlantis isn't even worth the effort. This is all shit I've said before, and if you were paying attention then, you noticed it here, and if you weren't paying attention then, you're not going to pay attention the fifth time around. Gay princess is next. This movie's weird. Good weird, but weird. I'll level with you, I went into Lilo & Stitch expecting to hate it, not because it's a bad movie, but because it's packed to the gills with all the trappings of storytelling that the new 10s have ground into the dirt, to the point that I and many others hate them on principle these days. But thankfully all the alien shit in this movie is very unobtrusive. It goes along with the main central theme of the story and complements it rather than getting in the way. Both Lilo and Stitch are hounded at all times by their respective governments trying to take them away, as they so desperately try to make the best of a bad situation. If you're someone who feels the stuff with the aliens gets in the way of Lilo's relationship with her sister, I implore you to take another look, because they run the same track at all times. I find where this movie truly splits people is on whether or not Lilo should have been taken away by social services or kept with Nani. But that's a false dilemma, because those are not the only options available. I'm strongly of the opinion that Nani is not fit to parent Lilo and she desperately needs help. A sentiment the film goes along with, as the moment Nani has a few extra pair of hands around the house, everything goes much better. What bothers me is the fact that this doesn't seem to occur to anyone around her, especially Cobra himself. Like, bitch, you're a social worker. It is literally your fucking job to notice this shit and provide the resources. You can't sit there and tell me your only job is putting kids into foster care. That is such a massive waste of effort, value, money, space, and time, especially when the root cause of the problem is obvious. Cobra could solve a lot of problems if he offered to look after Lilo once or twice while Nani gets all of her ducks in a row. Nani probably would have had a job within an hour if she didn't have to constantly keep an eye on Lilo and Stitch throughout her interviews. Between Cobra and David, most of these problems could have easily been solved. Hell, by the end, Cobra even blames Nani for shit that couldn't possibly be her fucking fault. The way the film uses social services as a cudgel to advance the story really only highlights just how little Nani actually needs to get everything secure for both herself and Lilo, and yet she is consistently left hanging out to dry by everybody. This is something that really throws me out of the movie, because the solution in every single instance is so fucking easy, and yet it never occurs to anyone. Hell, when Nani goes to take the interview in the third act, David just runs down with her when any sensible person would say, "I'll watch Lilo for you while you're gone," and Lilo is left to her own devices, and as a result, Cobra literally doesn't believe her when she says aliens are attacking. The more I think about this, the angrier I get. This isn't really an objective view of the movie, because like child welfare is a very touchy subject for me, so I'm just gonna set this aside and stop before I start screaming at someone. Gay princess is next. Holy shit, why is this movie so good? For real, I'll get to the story in a minute, haha, but just give me a second to gush about something I don't really get to gush about, and that's the animation and art design. This is the most visually creative movie in the fucking universe. Treasure Planet screams impractical but awesome. Hey, we're gonna do Treasure Island in space. Did we change the naval ships to spaceships? No. Rocket-powered frigates with sails being solar panels. The spaceport? It's shaped like a fucking crescent moon. The flintlock pistols shoot lasers. There's still swords and shit. The spaceship, which moves on a 360-degree sphere, is controlled by an old-timey wheel, and everyone's tied down in emergencies with rope, so it's possible for someone to fall overboard right into a black hole. No, I don't care if they can't breathe in space, Carl. Shut up, it's awesome. The pirates aren't Han Solo types. No, they're literally fucking pirates. Peg legs? No. Cyborg limbs that look like peg legs. It's like someone gave a 3-year-old an old pirate movie in Star Wars and then gave them a stack of crayons. Everything screams, fuck your practicality, I want my space pirate movie. And I'm so happy about that. I live for animated movies that just have so much Asian. So you can spend hours meticulously detailing the face or body language of a character, but it'll ultimately pale in comparison to the kind of fuck you imagination in movies like Treasure Planet. And that imagination is shared with the writing. This is one of the best casts of characters I've ever seen. There's only one character who I could say is cliched, and that's Jim. He's basically every mopey teenage heartthrob that was making the rounds in the early 2000s. The kind that would be played by Leonardo DiCaprio in the 90s, or Hayden Christensen in 2002, or Tom Holland today. Same mannerisms, same story arc, same broody attitude. I mean, he's not a bad character. I love Anakin in Attack of the Clones. I thought his dumb, mopey bullshit was fun to watch unfold. I'm just saying that among the rest of the characters, he stands out in being just okay. The best character is a tie between Mr. Silver and Captain Amelia. Silver for being that kind of genuinely complex character that straddles a line between hero and villain. There's always a plan for Mutiny to get Flint's treasure, and incidentally, the film makes no attempt to hide Silver's involvement since Jim notices that he's a cyborg like Bones said was after him, but has to keep reining the others in when they consistently murder and sabotage the rest of the crew. Silver even threatens to kill Scroop for killing Mr. Arrow because it was a risky and dangerous stunt. You can see right from the start that Silver is genuinely conflicted between his affection for Jim and a treasure he spent a lifetime searching for, and also all his cybernetics are wickedly creative, and once again an example of just how visually imaginative this film is. Then there's Captain Amelia, who, short version, is if Janeway was also a cat. The dynamic between her and Mr. Arrow is fucking great, but all of her dialogue is pure fucking gold.
And Doctor, again, with the greatest possible respect, zip your howling screamer.
The authoritative and honestly just fucking amazing dialogue is only magnified by her expressiveness. This is probably one of the best animated characters in all of Disney's canon, and another example of how detail and fluidity pales in comparison to good art direction. It's just a shame they had to shove her into a forced hetero relationship with fucking Dr. Doppler at the end of the film. She had much better chemistry with her rock husband before he got black holed. Good fucking god, some habits are hard to break, aren't they, Disney? If it were up to me, Amelia would have married Jim's mother, because if you're gonna have a romance be forced out of the blue like that, it might as well be something healthy and wholesome. Wouldn't want the children thinking heterosexuality is okay. Stop forcing a straight agenda in everything, Disney. Don't get me wrong, I like Dilbert. He's a fun character and a welcome addition to the cast, but he's not good enough for this to be a thing. Honestly, Amelia getting incapacitated like she does in the third act is just kind of bullshit. As much as I like Jim's robot buddy, I would gladly replace him with Amelia as the one scouting and solving puzzles with Jim once they make it to Treasure Planet. Let Dilbert get wounded. I just love characters like her. They're some of my favorite to write and read about. Interestingly enough, despite the story literally spanning galaxies, it's not really an exploration story. The world building is bare bones at best, which is good because you only know about as much of the galaxy as you need to. It's ultimately, well, what Dilbert said it would be, a few character building months in space. Flint's treasure, and admittedly Flint himself, are just an excuse for all these characters to go through their respective arcs within the same place. That's the kind of world building that makes a good story, only as much as you need. I'm sure there's no shortage of people who want to know why everyone can breathe in space, or how the hyperdrives work, or how everything was built, or how the ships are designed to run, but the movie just gives all that a shrug and goes, it doesn't matter, it's not important to the story, it's the good fucking food. Treasure Planet, like Mulan and Tarzan, is a strong contender for best Disney film ever made, and it would have absolutely clinched it if instead of giving us a forced hetero romance out of nowhere, the directors opted for gay princesses. Sorry, gay captains. Brother Bear is a story about a man who gets turned into an animal in order to learn a lesson about maturity. Wait, didn't we just do this? I could have sworn we just did this. Okay, so Brother Bear is better than Pocahontas, and honestly, that is about as much as I can say about it. A lot of the film stood out to me on watching it, but the only thing that really stayed with me was that it was better than Pocahontas, and somehow, I don't really know why, that sums up the entire movie better than anything else I could think of to write. It's weird, I know. Okay, so Chicken Little, shit, I forgot to say gay princesses for Brother Bear. Chicken Little is a movie I remember kinda liking, but wasn't expected to go back and enjoy as much as I did. I have something of a distrust of nostalgia, and the things I liked as a kid are 50-50 on whether or not they hold up upon a more discerning viewing. But Chicken Little is one of those movies that did hold up. It's one of the most delightful movies I've seen in a long time. There's so much wit on display in the humor and the characters, and it all gets kinda thrown at you rapid fire like an extended Family Guy cutaway. You know what? Family Guy cutaways are basically just Tumblr shitposts, and shitpost perfectly describes this damn film. If you watch it for anything, watch it for Fish and Runt. These two are some of the funniest goddamn characters I've ever seen, especially Runt with his affinity for music that is Just probably one of the best methods of getting popular music into a film I've ever seen, and I love it for that. Good mention goes to the relationship between Chicken Little and his father, namely due to the fact that his father actually apologizes to him for his negligence and lack of emotional support when he's confronted on it. I know it seems like kind of small potatoes, but in a time where a lot of shows aimed at children are kind of just not bothering with this in regards to incredibly worse behavior, it's so nice to see this handled well. Buck doesn't mean to hurt his son, that much is clear. That apology at the climax of the film really sells just how much he hadn't realized he was alienating his son, and the sincerity with which he made amends for that. Compare and contrast to the last episode of Tangled, the series' first season, where Rapunzel's father locks her away in a tower, oops, and then her mother tries to gaslight her by telling her how his actions come from a place of love. Basically, I mean well, therefore it's okay. Seeing a father be taken to task for his shitty behavior toward his kid and actually apologize and make amends for it without a single backhanded remark or excuse? God, the child in me just squealed in delight. When I was a kid, that's all I ever wanted to hear from either of my parents, and seeing it happen in a movie is just, the good fucking food. This movie was criticized for how mean-spirited it is, but after the diamonds turned out to be a metaphor for a dysfunctional family, it's nice to see a film understand what a dysfunctional family actually is. I mean, it's so good I'm not even that bothered by the lack of gay princesses. The Princess and the Frog isn't great material for a Disney film to begin with, but Disney made waves with the announcement that Tiana would be the first black Disney princess. Cool, that's like the first interesting thing to hear about this film. But then Disney decided to set the film in 1920s Southern United States. Wow, I thought upon first hearing that, a Disney film set in the Jim Crow era and taking a classic fairy tale along with it? Damn, I'm actually impressed. It's gonna be interesting watching Disney navigate the absolute horrors of the Jim Crow era with The Princess and the Frog while managing to keep everything kid-friendly. I get that the fairy tale is only about 2 pages long, so stretching it into a 90-minute movie is difficult unless your name is Peter Jackson, but dear lord, they didn't need to complicate it this badly. The story's an absolute mess of deadlines, technicalities, and loopholes that's so easy to lose track of. At the end, both Tiana and Naveen dispel their curse on a technicality, because once Tiana married Naveen, she was technically a princess, and so Naveen kissed a princess, and that's why they're human again. Also, weird question, and I probably should have led with this, why is this film set in the Jim Crow South and yet for some reason doesn't remark on it at all? The movie goes so far out of its way to portray the wealthy white family as nice and well-intentioned, but that opens up even more issues in the story. Like if this wealthy sugar baron is willing to haul ass out to the other side of the city because he likes your cooking that much, and your families have been on such good terms with each other for so long and is described to be very generous with his wealth, why don't you just get a small business loan from him? Even Naveen sees that idea, as giving Tiana the money for her restaurant was a condition Naveen gave to Charlotte, so what's stopping Tiana from getting help where she needs it? Is it pride? Is Tiana just too proud to take advantage of an extremely fortunate situation? On second thought, never mind, I actually like that. It really magnifies the importance of that bit where Charlotte hires Tiana to cater a party, and the money she'd make is enough to buy the building for her restaurant.
Okay, now how much have you won so far?
Wow, 700.
Not 700 exactly.
Yeah.
Double it.
Actually, I like Tiana in general. Tiana's one of my favorite Disney characters, right up there with Rapunzel and Disney's goodest boy. It's actually kind of a shame where she's put in a film where her sheer bullheaded determination is repeatedly slammed with misfortune and shame until she gives up on her dreams and surrenders to the typical Disney marriage. It seems like after so many years of being off-brand, Disney decided to go back to formula in the worst possible way. And along that road, they decided to spitefully lash out at people who were retroactively criticizing Cinderella while simultaneously forgetting what made that movie memorable. I get this film has a theme that family is more important than anything else, but it seems like the entire film spitefully goes out of its way to force that lesson into Tiana's head despite the fact that she didn't need to learn it. Tiana's father didn't neglect his family in the pursuit of his restaurant, but that doesn't apply to Tiana because she maintains a positive relationship with her mother and her best friend, and doesn't have a spouse or children to neglect. Tiana ultimately doesn't need to learn that lesson because she already took it to heart. Don't neglect your family for the pursuit of a dream. She doesn't because she didn't have one. She even says this herself.
I don't have time for dancing. That's just gonna have to wait a while.
Tiana making the decision to forego trying to start a family until after she has her restaurant was her realizing that if she had a family, she would likely never achieve her dream. And also that having a family is something that can wait until she has the time and means to have one. It's an extremely responsible decision that takes the lesson the movie beats into her head to heart. But instead, the film spends the entire runtime going, "No, husband, now!"
And it's not my style.
I want some grandkids.
Sit down, eat this, shag yourself. You find out what you need.
Guys, she's fucking 19 years old. She has plenty of time to start a family. Get off her back. I know in the 1920s it was expected for women to be married right out of school, but if you're going to just sidestep past the uncomfortable racism of the 20s, why are you reinforcing the uncomfortable sexism? Pick a fucking lane already, guys. And Tiana already had love in her life. Even if you don't think it's gay, there is no doubt that Lottie absolutely loves Tiana to bits. When her other friends are being catty to her about her having to work, Lottie ultimately doesn't do that, and even cheers for her when Tiana realizes that she'll make enough from the catering job to actually get her restaurant.
This should cover it just fine, Lottie. This is it. I'm getting my restaurant.
Naveen does the same thing when he starts to actually care about her. Tiana's restaurant is important to her, and as such it's important to him because, spoiler alert, that's what love is. Tiana is discouraged and roadblocked to her dream by everyone telling her that love is more important. But the people who actually love her are also the only characters who don't do that, because loving someone doesn't mean asking them to completely abandon what would make them happy just for your sake. Wow, that got personal. Tiana is told to give up on her dream based on the idea of a spouse and children, not on any that presently exist. In order for Tiana's workaholism to actually be something she needs to unlearn, it would either need to be severely damaging to her health, which it isn't, we only see her not getting enough sleep once, and she seems to be well rested anyway, or causing her to neglect a family she already has, which it doesn't. Without those things, Tiana doesn't really have to learn shit. And you look at stuff like that, not just the simple themes of the film, but the fact that the overall conflict orchestrating much of it is so convoluted and packed to the gills with loopholes and misdirections and side characters that go nowhere. Is it any wonder that this film flopped? People say this film flopped because of racism, but I have yet to meet a single person who doesn't absolutely love Tiana. She's one of the most popular and well-loved characters Disney has, and Dr. Facilier is considered to be one of the best villains Disney has ever made. There were people clamoring for this movie to be in Kingdom Hearts 3. I should know because I was one of them. This film didn't flop because of racism or a bias against 2D animation. It flopped because it's an overly complicated mess with way too many moving parts and a general theme about love that seems like it was written by the most miserable heterosexual bastard to have ever crawled their way out of a creative writing course. It's a film that embodies the imaginary version of Cinderella that people like to pretend Disney actually made. A film where a woman with her own tangible dreams beyond simply wanting more is repeatedly and endlessly psychologically battered into a kind of character that would be more comfortable for the men who directed this damn movie. Tiana is an absolutely wonderful character, and she deserved a better fucking movie than this piece of god-awful shit. A movie about Tiana's pride and the value of hard work and the uncomfortable reality that hard work ultimately isn't rewarded. A movie like this.
Nobody does anything without help, Will. People open doors for me, and I've worked hard to open doors for you. It doesn't make you any less of a man to walk through them.
And maybe some gay princesses as well. And also maybe don't release it a few days before Avatar. That probably didn't help.